My name is Taylor Monahan. I am the founder and CEO of MyCrypto. MyCrypto is a wallet interface thing that lets you interact with the Ethereum network and test networks and other networks. And it lets you primarily just some deep access to your funds and your tokens. But we've been building our new beta product for a while now and looking very closely at DeFi and sort of what the next wave of, I guess, use cases will be. And it's brought up some pretty interesting stuff that has been sort of floating around my brain. So I'm going to share some of it with you today. All right. So Stand By Me is one of my favorite movies. And also I created this presentation at the last minute. So there's a lot of just beautiful shots of this very nostalgic film. But I do think that, this era that we're in is very much a transition from being a very sort of small, very, very small community of people to growing. And that coupled with sort of the financial incentives that are involved make for some very interesting situations. And I think that it's a little bit more complex than people think. And I think that we should maybe talk about it a bit more, maybe. And so I'm going to start with this quote, and it says, "There's no quality in human nature which causes more fatal errors in our conduct than which lead us to prefer whatever is present to the distant and remote, and what makes us desire objects more according to their situation than their intrinsic value." Wow, that was a mouthful. Okay, so what this means is that us as humans, we just very strongly prefer the things that are right here, right now. And we desire things more because perhaps of how they're presented to us or our interactions with them, or because someone else has them, right? Advertising and influencers and that whole ecosystem revolve around the fact that humans want things that other people have. And this is especially apparent with how successful really, 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 really bad tokens have been. A lot of times when we talk about objects and human desire and stuff like that, we don't immediately go to tokens, but yeah, most of the tokens, whether it be in the ICO era or today, yeah, their intrinsic value is questionable at best. And so if we back up a little bit, there was this meme going around that said Bitcoin fixes this, and it was always a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I absolutely adore it because we're a little bit cocky, I think. We do think that what we're building is going to fix things, and that's not always true. However, I do think that it's important to note that one of the early sort of things that grabbed me about Bitcoin was that it sort of flipped, I guess, incentives or assumptions on its head a bit. Instead of hoping that everyone's going to be super nice and just do what they should do, Bitcoin said, hey, we are going to go and we're going to assume that everyone is out for themselves and everyone is selfish. And we're going to build a system where we don't actually care who the miners are. We don't assume that they're going to be good. We don't even need to know who they are. We're just going to create a system where if they act badly, then they destroy the system. And therefore, it all just, it's a very, very, in theory, good cycle where if they act badly, the value of the Bitcoin goes down and they lose. And so therefore they don't act badly, they act as the system wants them to. And that was pretty remarkable. I think that sort of, that approach to incentives and that approach to human nature is a really interesting one. Obviously, While it may fix some things, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies do not fix all the things whatsoever. And more importantly, I think, is the fact that a lot of the tokens in this ecosystem are considered valuable simply because they create this very short-term monetary value for their quote-unquote investors. And when I talk about investors, I mean people who are probably buying the token so they can flip it like today or tomorrow or in the next hour. And I also think that as of right now, the tokens in the Ethereum ecosystem don't really focus too much on encouraging pro-social behavior. They are, like we say, they're very speculative, but it's more than that. Like, we have not figured out the economics and the social systems around these tokens in a way that's, I would say, like, deeply interesting or deeply valuable. They are, they're speculative, or they're like one level up, meaning that they do something to incentivize one behavior, but it doesn't always incentivize the right behavior, as we know, because of all the bad things that have happened around these tokens and the scams and the greed and just, you know, everything. And I also think that it's important that we sort of acknowledge that right now we are not necessarily discouraging that behavior. Like, I think that sometimes if something is a really obvious scam or is severely unsafe, I do think that people, you know, open their mouths once in a while. However, if there's still value to be gained by someone who is running a Ponzi or just doing like a very basic rug pull, if they're still able to make money from that, that means that we aren't doing a good enough job at pushing out that bad behavior. And there's this old saying that says, like, bad money pushes out the good, but it actually remains true for a lot of things. Like online communities, it's the same, right? Like trolls, if they invade a certain community or a certain forum, like those bad people will be totally happy using your good forum. However, the good people on your forum are not happy to use it anymore. And so therefore, bad replaces the good. And so when we think about our community and our ecosystem and what we're building and what we're doing and what we're encouraging and what we're incentivizing, we need to ask ourselves, is the bad pushing out the good? Are we doing enough to keep the bad out? And what can we do to keep the bad out that doesn't necessarily, actually not necessarily, like it shouldn't encroach on our other values like censorship resistance, say. I'm not proposing that we keep out the bad by regulating the industry. I'm just saying that there's a lot of ways that we can affect change, and we should think about that and think about what it means for our future. I have no idea what I was going to talk about on this slide, but yeah, let's go. All right, so recently MetaMask launched a brand new feature that's a super cool feature for swapping within the MetaMask interface. And I'm actually not really here to talk about their feature. I love it, but I'm not even here to talk about sort of their business model or their decisions. I more wanted to talk about the response to this feature and specifically the fee on top of the feature. And more so because it sort of highlights this, I guess, inherent conflict within this space. And it highlights some other sort of pervasive, I guess, thoughts or the culture that's been building up since 2017. Obviously, you know, anything that I'm talking about right now is sort of specifically around MetaMask and the response to this new feature, but it's not like this was a unique situation, and it's not like these opinions and thoughts that were taking over every single feed. it's not like those came out of nowhere. They're reflective of the culture that we have as a larger community. And if someone were to launch a feature like this in the future, they should expect the same response. And it even bubbles up from there. So let's take a look at some of the responses. Percent fees should be illegal in crypto. Everyone hates traditional finance, yet here traditional brokerages traditional brokerages were 5 to 15 flat fees for trades for years before going feeless, blah, blah, blah. We're establishing a bad precedent. So basically what I'm hearing here is that you hate paying for things more than you hate arbitrary censorship. And this is what I mean about like some of these responses just sort of highlight like this conflict or this hypocrisy or this like, I don't know, this culture, right? Because when I think back to when I first got into crypto, I could never imagine this being something that was said, because censorship resistance and freedom of speech and those ideologies were like, those were number one. And by the way, the responses to this, we're not calling that out. The responses to this, we're agreeing. And the next one is, I'd much prefer it if MetaMask more focused on core functionality, which is connecting dApps to Web3 wallet. Thank you. I think that that's what MetaMask is trying to do. However, I also think that MetaMask is trying to be a sustainable business because they aren't right now, right? They're funded exclusively up until this point by consensus. And so then the bigger question is, okay, how do they continue focusing on their core functionality if they have no money? And if Lubin decides that he doesn't want to fund them? And where does that leave us, the user? No hate on status, but everyone switches to status. And this is mostly funny because, well, one, on the surface, status is yet to deliver a product that can truly compete with MetaMask. But more importantly, status was like probably like one of the biggest ICOs. It was definitely the biggest short-term ICO. I think it was like $150 million they raised, and it destroyed the network. It was there was so much FOMO around. And so what are we, like when we say things like this, what are we incentivizing, right? Are we saying like you should have an ICO, take all the money, spend 3 years to try to build a product, but ultimately not build a product that competes with MetaMask? Is that what we're saying? Because in my opinion, like, I don't know, maybe we should be thinking about how we can encourage products to have a sustainable business model over time, where sort of the money and the rewards align as they grow, and like everything, I don't know, everything contributes to everything in itself, rather than like flooding a company with boatloads of money up front and hoping for the best. Because we did that in 2017. It didn't work out that well. And I want to go back to this first one just for a second, because it ends with by saying, we're establishing a bad precedent and taking a step back, not forward, with these fees. And I think that this is, as a concept, important, right? Like, what are we doing, and is it setting a precedent for the future? However, I do disagree that it's necessarily a bad precedent. Obviously, if you hate fees more than you hate censorship, yeah, I guess it could be considered bad. But the way that I'm looking at it, maybe we need to zoom out a little bit and talk about what we're building and what we want to be building, where we want to go, and what the ultimate goal for users are, and then see if that aligns with, say, a fee or not a fee, or if adding a fee is a bad precedent. Because while DeFi has yet again proven that we are wholly capable of creating something of monetary value out of pretty much nothing, DeFi does not necessarily fix this. And when I talk about like fixing this, right? There's this there's a podcast with Mark Andreessen, and he says something like, the original sin of the browser or of the internet was that there was no payments incorporated. And I think that he wholly believes that if payments had been incorporated, we wouldn't have gone down this path of data mining and privacy invasions and exploitation and companies who can only survive because they sell their users to advertisers and to third parties. And I don't necessarily know if I agree with him. Like I would like to agree with him, right? I would like to agree that if there's payments everywhere and it's easy to make a payment, then everyone can survive and ads no longer exist, and on and on and on. However, there's a problem with that, because if you're looking at how to make a sustainable business, and you don't want advertisers and you don't want to sell your users' data, that means that you need to sell your product to your users. And that's not necessarily a problem unless unless someone else is willing to pay more for the user's behavior than the user is, right? So like you hear the saying, like, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. But what this means is that, let's say that, I'm using the service, I kind of like it, it does something useful to me, but I definitely don't like it enough to pay for it. Or I'm willing to pay $1 per month for it. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter, right? Ask yourself, is my behavior using this product and whatever information can be gleaned from me using that product? If I'm willing to pay $0 or $1 or $5, whatever the number is there someone out there who's willing to pay more than that? And unfortunately, whatever number I'm willing to pay, there's almost always someone out there that will pay more for it, because insights into my behavior are very, very valuable to someone else. Insights into my behavior are not valuable to me whatsoever, right? So then I'm solely paying for whatever value I get out of the product. And yes, there are products that people are just more willing to pay for. But when it's a really, I guess, upfront decision where you're like explicitly paying this much right now, like a very transactional payment, it's really almost always true that it's not only easier to convert users, but it's more profitable to just sell your users' behavior, whether it's to advertisers, whether you're selling their attention, or whether you're just collecting a whole bunch of information and selling it to a third party. I think the other thing that's really interesting about this whole conversation is there's a lot of like these backbone type business project team things in this ecosystem that have not done a token. And most of them have existed since like 2014, 2015, 2016, before ICO era. And why is that? Right? Why is it that the people that you visit daily don't have a token? Like they didn't have a token during an ICO. They're not doing a governance token now. Like, why is that? I don't necessarily have an answer, but I do think that it's a good thing to keep in the backs of our heads as we're talking about this, because I don't know, like one reason might be that the sort of the infrastructure layer products don't have like an easy way to just like bake in a token, right? Like if you're launching a smart contract on chain, you can just bake in the fee, you can take the spread, whatever. However, if you're Etherscan or MetaMask or Truffle, like you may not have that opportunity. The other one is that when you're an infrastructure layer type thing, you may not have like you're serving all of the users of the ecosystem and you're serving like all of the tokens. You're almost like at a higher level / lower level, like you're as the sort of the things that the end users are actually using or trying to get value from. And so in that case, what do you have to do to build like a strong enough community or a strong enough incentive mechanism or a strong enough reward? Like what do you have to promise people to get them to buy a MetaMask token. And obviously, MetaMask could probably spin up a paper and, you know, get some money. But usually if we promise something, we want to deliver on it. So then the question is, what do we have to deliver on? What do we have to build? How can we structure something which will then add value to not just us, not just the community that we build, right? Because the community is the whole ecosystem that you support. Like, what is it? How do you align all of that and get paid and add value to people's lives and on and on and on? I don't know. I think it's just a bit more complex than some of the DeFi things. They spin up and like they form a community of token holders around that. But I don't think the infrastructure layer has the same opportunity. Oops. Okay, so this is where I ran out of time and stopped making actual slides. So the other core difference between sort of the early creators in the Ethereum space, when I talk early, I talk about like the people that were building Ethereum, that were like there, like before the DAO, like, I don't know. There was a crazy culture of like working for the good of the group, right? The good of Ethereum, the good of the network, whatever. That was very much the priority over even yourself. If you were building Ethereum, you were promised these, you were paid for in a promise to receive tokens in maybe a year from now. And those tokens had sort of an unknown value. The pre-sale, they had sold the ETH token for 33 cents. So I guess you could put that price on it. And obviously, like, if you believe the value of ETH will go up, then the incentive might be there. But, you know, in those early days, especially since it was such a down part of the market, I'm not sure that everyone was primarily incentivized by money. I think a lot of people were just the types of people who, like, I don't know, they just wanted to build this amazing thing, and they believed in the mission, they believed in everything. I'm not sure that culture still exists, right? And so again, we see sort of this internal conflict or this internal thing that we're gonna have to figure out at some point. Like, are we doing this for the good of the group? Does that culture even matter? How do we maintain that culture as the community grows? It doesn't matter, right? And then next to that, how do you create a sustainable business? How do you create a sustainable business for everyone? Is it valuable to have infrastructure layers, or should we just not have these quote unquote middlemen? Because then without, you know, if MetaMask is a middleman and they're necessary, I don't see anything wrong with paying them and willingly paying them. Some people have brought up that the fee is an unnecessary middleman fee, which would then insinuate that MetaMask is unnecessary. And I don't think that's true. Mostly because I don't want to trust the DApp with my wallet information. Which brings me to my next point. I think my biggest sort of worry around this whole thing and what's been bothering me about DeFi and bothered me about ICOs back in the day, and, you know, just the thing that, I don't know, that's keeping this sticky in my mind is I'm worried that crypto is going to go down the same path that the internet went down. Except that, like, instead of Google being our master or whatever, you know, these infrastructure layers are going to be your master, because without them, you can't access the blockchain realistically. Which then puts us in a position that the services most heavily relied upon and the services you use every single day to complete any end interaction with blockchain, right? Any dApp that you interact with, you do so via MetaMask. That means that MetaMask is sitting in the perfect position to have the most information about you. They're able to glean the most information about you. They're able to then therefore sell you very, very well if they were to choose to go down an ad route. They would have an insane amount of data about you, about all of your accounts, about your activity. It's mind-boggling, right? And I think all the infra layers have this ability. I don't think, because I know the MetaMask team, I know the Etherscan team, I don't think that they're going to go down that path. However, if they do not become a truly sustainable and thriving business somehow, someone else who does go down that path will replace them, because they will have more money, they will have more profits, they will have the ability to move faster, they will have the ability to basically do everything that MetaMask wishes that it could do but can't, because, you know, they're an underpaid team of like one person who does this out of the selfishness and the love for Ethereum or whatever's driving them, right? And that is not what I want to be building. That's not what cryptocurrency should be about. I don't think that I'm the first person to think about this. Like, I don't think that I'm the first person to realize how much information the infrastructure layer could glean and how valuable that would be. Someone's probably thinking about it. Someone might be already building it. But right now, where we are in this ecosystem right now is like, we have the ability to shape what comes from today. We can do that with incentives. We can do that with like social pressure, like tweeting about it. We can do it in a whole number of ways. And we are small enough right now that if you do comment on things, and even more so if your actions back up the words that you speak on Twitter, you can actually like affect a change, right? You can influence who comes into the space. You can influence how they think about things, what things they care about. And you can also influence what people, like what types of businesses get spun up. Because if people are scared that that if they do like an ad play or a data play based business model, they will be destroyed by the Ethereum community, they're probably not going to start that business. And so if that's what we want, then yeah, we should speak up. However, if we're okay with that, like if we're okay with, as MetaMask, as my company, as all of the people who don't have a token, as they're trying to find their business model, if you're okay with, you know what, do whatever as long as I don't have to pay a fee, if that's your priorities, then yeah, going and shouting about how sucky fees are and that you wish they were illegal and on and on and on, go ahead, say that, right? But be aware that by saying that, you might be incentivizing someone else to replace MetaMask, and that person, I don't know, maybe they're the next Zuckerberg, right? Yeah, incentives are fun, really, really fun, super fun. So yeah, I'm gonna leave you with this question: what world do we want to build? And then what world are we building? And then think about that, because it's not just all on chain. It's not just all the money. It's not just all that stuff. You know, what you say, what we discuss, what we build, who you pay, how you pay them, all of these things, all of those things incentivize the behavior of the people inside right now, the people on the outside that will be coming in, and they can even influence who chooses to join this ecosystem. And then so super really quickly, what's up in my crypto? You should definitely go to beta.mycrypto.com, because we just launched this new feature. It's called your action items. And basically what it does is it tells you stuff that you should do. And some of them are very self-serving. So like it tells you that you should follow us on Twitter, because you totally should. But more importantly, it does things like, if you currently have the previous version of Rep, it'll tell you like which accounts, because beta.mycrypto.com is like multi-account support, like top-down multi-account support, right? So it'll tell you which of your accounts have that old rep, and it'll tell you that you need to migrate them, and then you can click the button and it'll migrate them. Same for, I think we've done Ant and Aave Lend. There's probably, Uniswap, the unis, claim your unis, right? So there's all these cool little things where, you know, if you're ingrained in this ecosystem and like you're watching this talk right now, you probably already knew about them. But now in your wallet, it'll just like show you and let you know that you have this situation and help you do that. And this feature is going to like scale up and get bigger, and we have some big plans for it. But I would definitely really, really love all of your feedback on it. And if you have ideas about how we can make it better. And if you do have those ideas, you can share them with me on Twitter. I am Taylor Monahan. You can find me at @mycrypto. And I just want to say thank you for listening to my glorious collection of thoughts, and I hope you got something out of it. And definitely ping me if you want to talk more about this. Thanks all.